like to start it off by brief introductions. We have three members of this esteemed panel here that it's an honor to introduce. What we'll do is we'll start off with Dr. Shelley Rigor, who I've met for the first time back in 2005 in Taipei, working on a study that I continue to be fascinated with, looking at I guess Taiwanese interactions when in China, which is something that I'm interested in these days as well. So it's a good topic, and glad to have you with Davidson College in North Carolina. We also have Dr. James Mevennen, who I knew back from his the old RAND days, and now with Defense Group International or Inc. Inc. DGI, who's one of the scholars that I've long had a lot of admiration for, looking at the PLA as well as some very hardcore technology issues, and something that that I have a significant interest in. We also have Rupert Hammond Chambers, U.S. Taiwan Business Council, who's got his hands full because there's a lot going on, and innovative thinker, and sort of keeps a lot of things going in the bilateral relationship. So with that, what we'll do is we'll start off with Shelley, and then after that, James, and then Rupert afterwards. So Shelley.
All right, well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and to commemorate, celebrate, whatever it is we're doing, the 30th anniversary of the TRA, which is a piece of legislation that has seen the triangular relationship among the U.S., Taiwan, and China through many changes, and has proved, I think, as the first panel suggested, a durable and also flexible vehicle for U.S. policy. And it also is a good vehicle for reminding us of kind of what U.S. policy is, which is that the U.S. has a strong interest in a peaceful, non-coercive resolution of the Taiwan issue that can win the assent, and this was the language that was kind of added to our policy in the Clinton administration, can win the assent of the Taiwan people. And I guess as the person invited today to talk about domestic politics in Taiwan, which seems to be my fate in life, the person to talk about domestic politics in Taiwan, I would address that from sort of two angles. Is that still the right policy, the idea that the U.S. has an interest in a peaceful, non-coercive resolution of the Taiwan Strait issue that can earn or win the assent of the Taiwanese people? And is the TRA the right tool for pursuing such a policy? And from the standpoint of domestic politics in Taiwan, at least, the key question is what could earn the assent of the Taiwanese people, right? What is, in fact, the will of the Taiwanese population? And how can we gauge what kinds of specific policies or developments would be able to earn or win their assent? And while I'm not going to try to predict the future either, I think for the moment, at least, in the immediate term, this is actually not as difficult a question as we often try to make it out to be. I think there are two elements to public opinion or popular preferences in Taiwan that are fairly well established and occupy almost the position of points of consensus among Taiwanese. And one is that the political autonomy, or if you want to call it independence de facto, or whatever you want to call it, to differentiate it from the kind of independence that we seem to find impossible for Taiwan, but something like self-determination, a democratic form of government, political autonomy, or de facto independence, that this is the strong preference of the overwhelming majority of Taiwanese people. At the same time, however, the overwhelming majority of Taiwanese people also seek a friendly and non-tense relationship with their enormous neighbor, mainland China. And they seek a friendly relationship both at the political level and at the economic level. On the surface, if we look at things from a kind of bird's eye view, these two points of preference may appear to be incompatible. Like, how could you have both the continued de facto independence of Taiwan and good relations with mainland China. But the fact of the matter is that this is the status quo. If there is a status quo in the Taiwan Strait at the moment, it is precisely that Taiwan is politically autonomous, separate, self-governing, as the people in the first panel pointed out, and also is, for the moment at least, enjoying productive and generally friendly, although obviously shadowed by many unfriendly gestures from the PRC, but nonetheless, in day-to-day operation, a pretty good relationship with the mainland. So it seems to me not surprising then that the dilemma for Taiwanese people and for Taiwanese leaders is how do we continue to deepen and extend into the future both of these realities? How do we keep these two goals in balance so that neither one need be sacrificed? Looking back a little bit into the James Mevennen administration, I think President Chun's approach was to emphasize, while recognizing, as have other leaders of Taiwan, at least since the Lee Teng-hui administration, recognizing both halves of the equation, I think President Chun tended to emphasize the first half, the political autonomy and separation, and followed policies aimed at reinforcing the separateness of Taiwan from mainland China, both by minimizing concessions to the mainland and by intensifying the sense of a separate identity within Taiwan. I think this approach was not fully successful because it didn't, first of all, it was unable to simultaneously reinforce the sense of separate identity for Taiwan and also promote friendly relations with mainland China. And the consequence of that was that the economic relationship between the two sides continued to intensify. The trajectory of growth in cross-strait investment and trade and interdependence was still very steep, but the political coordination that would have been desirable to manage that economic change was not put into place during this administration for reasons having to do with the actions of both sides, obviously. Also, I think President Chun's approach was not fully successful because there was not enough evidence that Taiwan was progressing toward full independence, right, de jure independence, to satisfy the core supporters, what we call the deep green element in Taiwan society, who really felt that that was Chun's mission and that he ought to have done more to promote that cause. And then finally, I think President Chun's policies were not fully successful because they did not stabilize and improve the relationship between Taiwan and the U.S., which is something that many Taiwanese citizens view as a kind of necessary backstop for their two primary goals, that without the support of the United States and the willingness of the United States to stand beside and you know, I don't want to say referee or mediate because those are the wrong words, but to be present for Taiwan, then in the absence of that kind of a U.S. commitment, neither friendly relations with the mainland nor Taiwan's continued separate status is really standing on solid ground. So at the end of the Chun administration, with the evidence that I think was perceived across much of Taiwanese society that this approach had not been fully successful, the question then is, you know, what do we do now? So by a very substantial margin, the Kuomintang became dominant in both the legislature and the executive branch, in part, and not fully, but in part by virtue of the promise of a new approach that also is designed to uphold both of these goals, to continue Taiwan's separate status, self-determination, self-government, democracy, and also to promote friendlier relations with the mainland. This is really the first, the Ma Ying-jeou administration is really the first time that we have tested this kind of a strategy. This was not President Lee Teng-hui's approach to cross-strait policy, and it was not President Chen Shui-bian's approach, and it certainly wasn't Jiang Jingguo or Jiang Jieshi's approach either. So we are testing this approach for the first time and finding out whether the kind of policy initiatives that the Ma administration is trying out will be successful.